Hello, hello. Thank you so much for joining today's episode. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining today's episode of Career Conversations. Today, I have with me Nicole Garner Scott, Dr. Nicole Garner Scott. She has an honorary doctorate recognized for her work in business. She is a mother, wife, native Atlantan, TEDx speaker, and she's also been recognized for her entrepreneurial innovation by the White House. So I won't give all of the details away, but I want you to know that Nicole's goals are truly focused on helping you take your financial puzzle and create a coordinated strategy to help you create a financial picture that maps out your legacy. So I want to welcome Dr. Nicole Garner Scott to today's show. Welcome, Nicole.
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. I'm so glad you could join me today. Thank you.
No, thank you for having me on.
Awesome. So I guess I want to just kind of start from the beginning. Like, what does your family think you do?
That is always such a layered question, right? But no, in my family right now, they come to me as the money person. So ideally, I want to get more family members to come to me proactively rather than reactively. So that's kind of just what we're working on, with that. But they have a good idea. They're like, if it's anything money, finances, then talk to Nicole. So I have become that person in the family. So yeah, they know that part. But as far as like the specifics of me of wealth advisement, then that we're working through
They're like, well, what is this again? I thought you just handled 401ks and insurance or something like that, probably.
Right. And then also too, it's how people view financial planning, right? So whatever their experience has been up to this point with financial planning, that's the lens that they look out of it. So, everything that I do is from more of a holistic, integrative aspect, like what are your goals and how are we customizing it to that? So if that hasn't been your experience, then you're gonna hear the title and involve it in the way that you would see it.
That makes sense. So people are like, "Oh, she's gonna tell me to live off ramen noodles because my budget's crazy," and so people probably kind of run from you.
Sometimes some people will start off the conversation like, listen, I like to go out to eat, I like to travel. So if you're gonna tell me not to do these things, then we might as well not talk. And I'm like, whoa, like
they start the conversation
right. The trauma asserts itself very early in the conversation. But what I tell people is everything about the planning matches what it is that you want. Like and then I have to remind people too, the way that you fight for your luxuries at this age, you're going to be the same when you're 60 and 70 fighting for those same luxuries. It's not like you're going to become a grandparent or a senior citizen and then just be like, you know what, now it doesn't matter if I have $5 to my name. You'll still be that same version of yourself. So
right, you like what you like.
Yeah, I'm just helping to help you take care of that future version and your current version at the same time.
That's what I tell myself when I work out. I was like, you got to take care of 80-year-old Nika.
Yeah.
So the same goes with your money. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me a little bit about why you decided to take on this career? It doesn't.
Yeah, definitely. So I've been an entrepreneur since young. I've always been in the entrepreneur space, and I started out in the world of marketing and PR. And through that, became a serial entrepreneur. But as I was talking to more entrepreneurs and even in my own self journey, before we could do anything else, there was this large gap of financial literacy, financial planning. And then there was starting to be a large gap of people around me who felt like they were doing really well and they felt like they had some things in place, but they didn't know what to do next. And they didn't know how to structure things or strategize. So it became a personal for me. This was just me starting with wanting to help my own family and put things in place for my own bloodline. From there, I started to help the friends. Then I started to help community. And then it just kept spreading. And I just started diving deeper into my licenses and what I could serve my community in that type of way at a higher level. Because I feel like there's a lot of us who have great information, but being able to serve at a higher level, professionally is really what, started to grab my interest. And so that's how I got to this journey.
That's exciting. So you said, look, I see a gap. Here's an issue that is not being addressed.
Mhm.
What are some of the key things that you've kind of shown people kind of to get them, I guess, open to the idea of financial planning?
Um, so I really like to talk about there's certain things that you can't control, right? And many of us, especially us as women, we
Oh, we like
feel
to try to control it all.
we try to. I mean, we're very methodical in how we lay out our lives, right? And there becomes those moments as you get older and with maturity where you realize some of these things are just not in your control, right? You can do all these things. If marriage is on your heart, marriage comes when it comes. You can't force it. You can't demand it, those different things. You can have thoughts about children, and when it comes to your life, it comes if it's meant to come. Where there's just a lot of different things that as you start to experience life more and more, you realize, hey, this part is not in my control. All I control is me, my actions, and what it is that I do. And so I
Right.
carry that over into money. Many of us feel like, okay, I have these certain things in place and I can control everything, but there's uncontrollables. There's death, there's health, there's taxes, there's inflation, there's longevity, there's things that no matter who you are, no matter how rich you are, no matter what's been done, um, you can't control those things. And so I help with starting people with a journey of how can you insulate yourself? How can you
Hmm.
protect yourself in those different realms? And if you can put that covering over you, should life happen, and should life have its cycle and the economy has its cycle, it doesn't impact you at such a great level because you have insulated yourself. You've put strategy and tools in place to help you do that.
That's fantastic because I can think about, like I said, all the things you want to plan for, whether it's building the nursery for the baby or, that luxury car you want to get or whatever it is that you're after. Like there's only so much you can control. Like
Right.
inflation, like going to the grocery store. I'm like, this grocery bill is disrespectful.
It's very disrespectful. Even from a year ago. It's not even like we're saying, oh, back, a decade ago, groceries cost this. It's like last September, groceries cost this. And
Right.
yeah, you can see the massive inflation growth in such a quick amount of time. And so it's like, hey, these things are happening around you. What are you doing to protect yourself in that process?
That is a great thought. So what is something that you wish you knew about money growing up that you've learned over the years?
I would definitely say strategy, right? So I think a lot of us understood the tools or we were introduced to tools, right? So, either you got to college and it was like, oh, credit, I can get whatever I want. Or you came from a family that put fear in your heart. No, don't touch anything credit, leave anything that's a credit card alone, etc. Or you got into, okay, great, I can get student loans and I can get my refund check and I can, do these different things. Or,
Right, like
you
go trips for a spring break or whatever.
correct. You fell into a lot of your long-term financial decisions without any strategy, without knowing that there is multiple ways to handle things and to approach things. And a lot of that carries on for decades afterwards. Like you're still dealing with a lot of those decisions that you weren't properly made to
Educated.
understand. And so just really understanding the strategy side to it. What if I do this, then this it happens. If I choose not to do this, then this happens. And I love, so it's so interesting now. It's just a Generation Z and millennials and just so empowered. I get calls all the time from like people who just turned 21 and they're like, I need a financial advisor. And I'm like, gosh, I wish at 21.
Wish that I had the thought in my mind to call someone.
Yes,
And you at
yes,
21, you're like, if you had the thought, you're like, I can't afford that.
yes, yes. I had a young lady who called me the other day, is getting ready to graduate, assessing her student loans, how much is in her name, how much is in her parents' names, adamantly wants to clear the student loans for her that's in her parents' names. Like she holds that onto her, wants to make the right financial decision, doesn't understand what like her benefits package means. And I was like, well, how old are you? And she was like, well, I'll be 21 next month. And I was like, goodness. And this was, and I was like, what exposed you to this? Was it your parents? And she was like, no, this is just, these are the conversations her and her friends have, you know, and it's different. I'm on in the course of a day, I can be on the phone with someone like her, and I could be on the phone with someone who's 58, trying to, you know, make some better decisions and really start to entertain what retirement's going to look like for them. So the scope of it, but I'm just very excited to see that it's becoming so normalized, that it's becoming something that by the time I cross paths with someone, they're like, you know what? God sent you this way because I've been meaning to make this call, or, you know, it was time to have this conversation. It's not so much pushback. It's very much welcomed in a lot of spaces. So yeah, I love where it's going.
No, that's awesome to see, like, younger people really understanding that you can have a financial plan. I almost feel like in some ways psychologically it's a luxury to think that you can plan. And so for people to be coming from a space of going, well, I don't have to be so stressed about, okay, is the light bill paid, or can I afford gas to get to work? They're now thinking more long term. That's amazing.
It's
That's
beautiful.
amazing. So when talking to younger people, what is some of the best typical advice that you give people when they're getting started on the financial journey?
So in my mind, I extend what younger is. Like, you could be 40 and still be young to me. Because, you know, us as a community, we live so much longer now. We're taking better care of ourselves. We have a lot more, you know, there's many people in their 40s who are just really living for the first time, right? Jumping into the job positions, etc. So
this is true. Like 40 is like very much like the starting point for a lot of people.
Yeah, so I'll definitely say this advice is multi-generational, but understanding your financial priorities, right? Understanding how you build your blocks, and then making it make sense. So there's a lot of quick money opportunities that are spread very far through social media, right? There's
NFTs,
a lot of, yeah, there's
Bitcoin.
Correct. And so some of those opportunities make sense when you have proper things in place. But when you don't have proper things, like if you don't have an emergency fund in place and you make these large investments and life happens, you're going to burn through that investment anyway because you didn't have an emergency fund in place. If something happens in life and you don't have your defense, like your risk management, your insurance, you know, life insurance around you, disability, some of those other things, you're going to burn through all the money. So it's what we don't talk about enough is order of operations. And a lot of people who are giving the advice, they personally have already gone through order of operations, right? What they're saying totally makes sense once you look at they have this amount of cash and savings. They have these insulating things around them. They've been doing this, and these things have been growing in the market for some time, or their portfolio is balanced in this type of way. It's just that you're not getting that back end. You're only hearing that one part that says, "Hey, you can make this amount of money now." And so the thing is, if you don't have those other things in place, that if you don't have it prioritized, you know, starting with a strong foundation to the house and then building up to the roof, then things can implode or fall in on themselves. And so I don't hear that conversation happening enough. I'm trying to spread that conversation as much as possible. But order of
I'm so glad you're here. That's one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on, because it's like I think that she understands the barrier for a lot of folks. Some people go, oh, you know, you need to start with investing. This is but you have to understand that some people don't have $30 in their savings account.
Correct.
Like those people don't need to be forgotten because they don't have certain kind of access. Like we need to bring them along. And so I was like, Nicole understands this. She can teach people.
Yeah, definitely that. And then also another conversation that I feel like is left out is we talk a lot to how to get as much money as possible, but that's human behavior, right? We're trying to get more, etc. But we don't talk a lot about how to keep as much money, right? And so we're in spaces where the pandemic was very hard for some people and it was very good for others. So there's a lot of
Privileges.
correct, very much. And so there's a lot of new money, right? There's a lot of individuals who have gotten to financial places that they haven't before. And then there's a lot of change money, whereas you might have felt very, very comfortable in a lifestyle before, and now you're recognizing you have to take more ownership in your own narrative, right? There's the job that you were with forever, they didn't pass through the pandemic, or some other things that you thought were in place for life, those things have kind of altered in a little bit. So you have all these massive changes happening with people, and people are going into, how can I spread myself so thin to bring in all of this money? But then all that money's going right back out the door in taxes. All that money's going right back out the door in other areas, that
healthcare expenses, because you've worn yourself to the bare bone.
Correct.
I mean, I tell people that that I'm working with, they're like, well, I can come do it Sunday. I said, look, it can wait till Monday, because it's not worth you burning both ends of the candle to try and run a business this way.
Correct.
It's not effective.
Correct.
Like, we have to care about each other that much.
Yes. And so if we stop for a moment, paused, and recentered in regards to making a plan that has more longevity to it, right? Because it's probably nothing you can't do for a year. You could probably do overnights. You could burn yourself out. You can, all these different things for a year. But at some point, that's not your long play, right? That's not sustainable. And so understanding how to keep more of your money is going to be, very, very lasting for you in regards to your whole overall plan.
Yeah, that's how you can afford vacation. or your first employee if you're a business owner, or
exactly
those sorts of things.
Yes. Yeah,
that is excellent. Tell me this. What did you want to be when you grew up? You said you become a serial entrepreneur. Did you always see yourself as an entrepreneur?
I did. Probably from 5 years old. So
5?
Yeah, at 5, I became I had a very frugal father, where it was, every time it was like, explain why you're asking for this money, tell me why you want the money, etc. And very early in life, I was like, this is getting old. So
she's like, I don't need to explain. I just need to get access. Thank you.
Right. I need the ice cream truck is on the way now. I don't have time for a dissertation. And so, but I get it, because, my parents were trying to provide, right? The stuff that a young child can't see, that a parent is trying to hold different things together, and they're trying to, of course, take care of unforeseeables on their end in the best way they know how. But I became like the candy lady, when I was young. I was very entrepreneurial. I was the Girl Scout that sold the most cookies just so I can get the extra cash bonus. I had that level of ambition very young. And what I always thank my parents for is they saw that and they nurtured that, because that can go very left for a child too. When they have that level of ambition, and depending who they're around and who they're getting advice from, you have to hone in on that for a child. So I tell people now, if your child is displaying strong urges of ambition, you can't just leave that by the wayside. They need as much nurturing as if you were going to put them in a STEM program or a coding program, or football camp or whatever that is. They need that same level of nurturing, because the world is giving so many different narratives that can completely make that go left. So they put me around the right environments to really hone that in. By the time I went to college, I knew I wanted to work for myself. I just didn't know how. I had no idea how to run a business. And so that was my purpose in going to college. But definitely I knew entrepreneurship hit me very, very early.
I'm not explaining the ice cream truck
yes,
anymore.
Very early on.
I love it. So what are some of the things your parents did to nurture that ambition? You said that you connected with certain people.
Yeah, they put, because they weren't entrepreneurs themselves, so they put me around that. They also really delved into getting me a lot of books to read. That was very big for my father. Like
That's
he
sweet.
would be like, if I can't answer it, it's somewhere out there. And so we're going to do you're just going to have to dig a little bit harder. And really expose me to listening to a lot of things. I remember I was in high school, and he gave me the book, the 4 Hour Work Week. I don't know if you familiar with that book?
I've heard
Yeah.
of it.
hmm
Wow.
So he introduced me to that early in life and was really big on, if you're going to take the entrepreneur journey, you need to know how to work on your business and in your business. So they were great at exposing me past even what they had experienced themselves.
I love it. And I think that's such an important element. Like, I feel like sometimes parents go, well, I have not taken this journey before. How do I guide and help someone to become this? When it's like, well, there's resources and you're a very smart person. Like, you can help nurture those things without necessarily having all the answers. So I,
Yeah.
I love that you shared an example of how your parents really poured into you and purchased books for you and surrounded you with people who were in fact taking the journey that you wanted to be
And I
on.
think too, like when it comes to like financial talks with your family and with kids and whatnot, there was a meme that I saw maybe like a month ago that talked about, if you grew up from very humble beginnings, how do you raise a child that you've given like a middle class or upper middle class life to? Like, what's the trauma that you experience as a child? You're not even able to relate to your own child, and some of the trauma that you bring to the parenting situation, right? Like you're trying to make them go to suffer because you felt like you suffered, or you're trying to make sure that you don't give them certain things because you grew up and you didn't have those things, but you're able to give those to them. So even recognizing and kind of healing some of that too, so that you don't pass that on, some of that trauma, on to your own next
No,
generation.
that makes sense. I was just having a conversation with someone today. They were like, I really struggle with the idea of like, am I giving my kids too much? Like, should they have all of these things? And it's like, why not?
Mm-hmm. That's
Like,
where the conversation comes into place, though. Like that's really where there's this book called Spend, Save, Give that I tell a lot of people to get for themselves to read, and if you have like a teenager, it's really good for teenagers. But it's
huh.
that giving side that's not being conveyed, and that's when you give too much money, too much power, right? So
Oh,
as you're young and you're seeing things done, if you don't have that giving side, if you don't understand that money's energy, if you don't understand that it's never about the money, it's about what this currency can do, some of those different concepts, if you can give that part, then you're not going to raise someone who feels like they can only talk through money and they can only relate through money. They get the bigger concept and they recognize money's just a tool.
it's called Give, Spend, Save.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna make sure people get this because I'm like, this is a really good idea to check it out. Hold on, I've got a capitalization. I'm gonna pull this out on the back end. Give me one
hmm
second. Not of my equipment wants to cooperate today. Give me one moment. Okay. So give, spend, save. I'm so glad you shared this. I think this is a book that you said, teens can read, adults can read, and get something
hmm
from it.
hmm
So that is an excellent recommendation. Thank you.
hmm
Um, do you have a favorite book that you've read over the years that really stood out to you personally?
Yes. Rachel Rogers, We Should All Be Millionaires. Love that book.
Get
Absolutely.
out. Like, I just put that on hold, like in the library for like audiobook today.
So
Like,
good. So good. I really think a lot of our community, what we go through is a lot of mindset, right? And when it comes to money, there's a lot of things that have been passed down, right? Generationally, as far as our thoughts on money, financial planning, a lot of the tools that can build wealth, we inherently have a fear of them, and rightfully so, because previous generations were manipulated, or taken advantage of or exploited. There's a lot of systematic things that were that were put into how people think about banks and insurance and
Right.
finances. And
Like, I'm sure like somebody got the grandma that's still like, I don't put my money in the bank, it's in the
correct.
ministry. Like,
And you can understand where that
what
trauma
came
comes
from.
from, right? And so so her book really speaks a lot to mindset, to creating some things for yourself now. And yeah, I love that book. There's another one called is being a badass at making money.
Oh, Jen Sincero.
Yes.
Yeah. I love her. Like, I have not read the one about money. I think that the one I just read, You Are a Badass. It's like one of my favorites. So I can only imagine that making money is probably even better.
Yeah. It and I think for many of us, we have narratives that play a role in our mind as far as money from childhood. And then also too, we don't know what we don't know, right? We've touched money since we were little. You've been around, and if you go back to your childhood memories, you have been exposed to money since then. So in your adult years, you feel like, okay, well, I know what I know. But there's so many different levels to really aggregating everything for your greatest good when it comes to your financial planning. And so many times it's having an outside person, having a team, having individuals and professionals that study this day in and day out that can really help. And so yeah, she talks a lot through that. And then also she talks about making space for money, right? There's many of us who are waiting till we hit the lottery to have that. And I say lottery, not the real lottery, but you're waiting till you get the dream job. You're waiting till everything in life lines up perfectly. You're waiting for the bonus to happen. You're waiting, whatever that lottery is to you, you're waiting for the lottery before you make some good decisions. But it's key to make those decisions so when the lottery happens, you're able to already have you've already built the financial muscle. You already have the right people in place. You've already vetted them. All of those different things, because
You are preaching, like, because people don't understand, like, habits are so important to how we manage money. Like, I was thinking to myself, like, before I could save my first $1,000, I had to be able to save 100.
Yeah, exactly.
People don't think, oh, $100 is a lot of money at one point in my life. Like,
Yeah,
but until you, like you said, build that muscle, it's going to be hard to do. Winning the lottery is how a lot of people end up broke in a few years because they don't have the financial discipline and strategy in place.
Correct.
And that's where you come in.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And showing people what to do. So we talked about like your favorite book and some other good recommendations of things that have been really instrumental in your beliefs about money. What money belief changed your life?
I would definitely say, because I grew up very frugal, that there comes a point in time that you're so frugal that you impact your quality of life. And that was a mindset I had to free myself from in my 20s, right? If you end up getting the cheapest car, over time you ended up getting the most expensive car as many times as you get it worked on and take it to the shop. If you end up getting the cheapest shoes and they break the first time you go out and you're buying more shoes, whatever those things are, in your mind you feel like, oh, I'm saving money, but you're costing yourself quality of life. You're adding stress onto yourself, and over time you end up spending 3 and 4 times as much. So that was definitely a large shift I had to do. And I recognize where it comes from, because if you grew up in a house where it was survival, survival tactics will be passed down to you, and they're deeply rooted, and you feel like that is how you should approach life. But when you're in survival mode, you can't grow. And when you're in survival mode, you're not in abundance mindset. You're in a scarcity mindset. And a scarcity mindset will keep you at level 1 while everyone else is advancing on the board. You're too scared to move forward. You're too scared to take the next step. You're too scared to invest in a pair of shoes that would get you further along the board, whatever that is. And when you switch over to abundance mindset, then you feel like there's more than enough, and there's opportunity for advancement, and you putting yourself in the energy where you can see the blessings, coming around you. And so I definitely had to really heal through that process. You know, and even like some of my clients right now that are they're doing excellent, but they're self-sabotaging themselves because they feel like they don't deserve it because that's not how they grew up. Right.
I can relate to that 100% of the, I mean, even something as simple as like, you know, what kind of purse you buy or what kind of shoes you wear or what kind of house you even think you deserve. Like those are all huge factors.
Right.
And you have to work through what, you know, your therapist might call inappropriate guilt.
Yeah.
About those things because you don't have to feel guilty about it. It's not even serving anybody or you. Like they don't even know you feel bad. They don't care.
Correct. That's when you have to put your boundaries around yourself too, because there will be family members and friends who they feel like you shouldn't celebrate because they're unable to celebrate, or that's not what you're supposed to do, or money is evil, or you know, these different.
I get it. I straight up had to just tell people, if you don't like Happy Nika, then we can't be friends. It's that simple.
I love that though. That's very empowering because the Happy Nika is here to stay.
Right.
No, that's good.
Now, I'm super enjoying this conversation. Is there anything that I haven't asked that you'd like to share with me or with the audience?
I think sometimes when I lead these type of conversations, it inspires people to start having these conversations back in their households, with their spouses, with their adult children, with their teenagers, with their parents, etc. And a lot of times people are like, okay, I feel inspired to get my stuff together, but the people I love don't. And so, and that's typically, you know, once you hear a conversation like this, you're like, boom, I'm about to go back and get it together. Everybody around me is going to get it together. So one, the best way that you can inspire the people around you is for you to start moving yourself, right? There's many couples that I deal with where the wife makes the first move, right? and it happens all the time. And even in my own household, you know, even in my own family, it took me making the first move, and now everybody takes credit for it, right? They're like,
it's like I was there with you from day one.
Yeah, like everyone's like, oh, yeah, but they don't see it. But sometimes it's you taking the first move, you moving, and it's causing the people that you love around you to recognize that there's more growth to be had. So if you have to take the first move, you take the first move, you know, and also too, it all plants a seed, right?
Yeah.
Over time, the people that you love, that you would hope is moving along at the same rate that you are, we all move at different times, but you're planting the seed and you're opening the dialogue and you're opening the conversations, and then they're seeing the activity being done. And usually they come around, and then even if they don't, you feel like at least I exposed you to it. At least I talked about it and did my part in regards to it.
I want to invite you to this. If you want to come, that's up to you.
Correct. Exactly. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Tell us, do you have mentors or mentees?
Both. I feel like that's a part of your existence on this earth, right? If we build as we climb. I'm gonna always need someone in front of me, and it's my mission to always lift up those behind. It's definitely not a lot of Black women in finance, right? That as compared to how much is needed. And so anytime I can help, you know, in that area, just guiding more women into that space, that's always a passion of mine. And then also too, you can't just focus on money, right? There's so many different dynamics and areas to your life, and all of them are reflection and impact each other. So even I'll tell people, if I'm helping you with your money, you still got to go to therapy. You still got to go do whatever you need to do for self-care and for health. All these things impact everything.
I'm so clapping because I'm like, hey man, like, I mean, as much as we like think about, you know, at work, you got a team that executes things, like you need a team for yourself.
You do. You do.
You need your doctor, you need your therapist. All of that's necessary. I mean, also, you know, good friends and family, that's great, but like actual professionals make a difference if you can get access. Or maybe if that's not in the budget, do you know people who can at least push you in the right direction or give you the right books? Like there's so many ways to get what we need.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so true.
Nicole, thank you so much for being a part of Career Conversations. Is there a way people can get a hold of you if they would like to reach out to you?
Yeah, website. So if you're interested in a financial consultation, and I don't want you to take that as overwhelming. I want you to say, "Hey, I'm ready to sit down with someone who can relate to me, who sees me, who hears me." The website is themoneyplaninc.com. And so you can schedule with me on that. If you're on social media, it's at Dr. Garner Scott, just like in the that's why I do it that way. Just
Look,
like
I love it. So people know exactly where to find you. You said it's the Money Plan Inc.com.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the
Right.
moneyplaninc.com.
So look, this is where you can reach out to Dr. Nicole Garner Scott and find out about what you can do to take those next steps and realize that you don't have to take this huge, humongous leap out of the gate. She is going to meet you where you are and you guys are going to go forward.
Yes.
So reach out. Don't be shy. Don't be scared. She's somebody that I've been communicating with for the last few months as well, y'all. So when I find good things and good people, I like to share.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. So look, I can't be everything to everyone, but I was like, I can share
Yeah,
all the
exactly.
magic and all the amazing people that I meet so that more people have access and opportunities so that we aren't, going, oh, I don't know this person, I haven't seen this, and there's no representation.
Mhm.
Look, this is what Career Conversations is here for.
Love it.
So Nicole, thank you so much. And you all, thank you for watching Career Conversations. Until next time, see you soon.